team. Learning opportunities and challenges in planning the research lesson. The presenters are Jessica Cremona, Diane Mitzi, and Simone Ellul. Jessica, Diane, and Simone are all primary teachers who have led a lesson study in mathematics. In their presentations, they will focus on learning opportunities and challenges related to collaboration, shared ownership, reflection, and finding time. So I welcome Jessica as our first presenter.
I will share my screen.
Hi, Jessica.
So hello to everyone. I am Jessica Cremona, a primary teacher in a state school. Today I'm going to share with you my experience of leading and also taking part in my first lesson study. First of all, I want you all to meet my team. I approached this team to be part of my lesson study because we work very well together. This photo shown here was taken after the post-lesson discussion. Today, I will focus about the planning the lesson stage, more specifically about the learning opportunities and also about the challenges that I experienced when I was leading this lesson study. So the first learning opportunity that I will be talking about, that in my opinion was very clearly seen in my lesson study, was ownership and empowerment. When I first approached the other members to take part in my lesson study, I think that they accepted, most probably because we are such good colleagues and maybe they felt obliged to do so. And this was clearly seen in the initial meetings of the lesson study. However, as weeks started to pass by, I felt that my objective was taken on as their personal objective, and they wanted this lesson study to succeed as much as I did. Essentially, our goals were aligned, and they really engaged themselves, and they really owned it, and they were really empowered. In fact, we were really looking forward to the meetings each week, and we also participated in depth. I personally felt their pride, the pride that they were actually taking part in this lesson study. So in my opinion, there was a shift from a solitary objective, that was my objective of this lesson study, to each member. And they made it their own business for everyone in order to succeed. In fact, I chose this photo here. This photo was taken during the third meeting of our lesson study, where the sense of ownership could already be felt. Another learning opportunity that, in my opinion, was also evident in this lesson study was collaboration. As I said before, I approached this team as we work very well together, and we are very good colleagues. I believe that this opportunity to take part in this lesson study helped us to continue to strengthen our team spirit. By being primary teachers, we have very limited time where we can meet and where we can work together. This lesson study really helped us to find the time per week in order to meet and in order to collaborate and work together by sharing our ideas, our perspectives, our insights, and also our experiences to work collaboratively together. And also an important point is that every member felt valued to work together in order to build this lesson study. And this photo here that I chose, where we were working together collaboratively to build our lesson plan and also our resources. Another learning opportunity that emerged from this lesson study is the time to reflect not only individually, but also as a group, so group reflection. I truly believe that day to day, we really like the opportunity where we have the time to reflect together. This lesson study contributed for us to actually have this time. I think that this created a safe space where all the members felt comfortable to share their thoughts without the fear of being judged. In my opinion, this led to a very powerful tool for growth and also for reflecting on our personal teaching practices. This photo here, we were reflecting together as a group. Now, I will talk about also the challenges that we faced during this lesson study. And I think that in my opinion, the biggest challenge that we faced was the time constraint. In order to do this lesson study, we had a very short time frame in order to lead and to deliver the lesson study, where also the Christmas activities were very close, so it made it more challenging. So it was very difficult to find the time in order to meet every week and also to prepare the work needed for this lesson study. Moreover, as you know, being a primary teacher makes it more challenging, and because, as you know, being a primary teacher all the time is exclusively spent in class with children, and so it's also a challenge to find the time. What did we do in order to overcome this challenge? So as a leader of this team, I tried to plan the meetings ahead. Mainly all the meetings were planned during the first meeting, so that we had a planned time frame. Also, the delivery of the lesson and also the post-lesson discussion, they were prepared and planned well in advance, so that I made sure that we will manage to do this lesson study on time. So these were a little insight about my learning opportunities and also the challenges. I would like to thank all the members of my lesson study for this lesson study because it was very successful. And I would also like to thank Dr. Calleja and Ms. Laura Formosa for this opportunity. And thank you all for being here and for listening to my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing your insights as well with us. And we invite you all, if you have any questions addressed to our presenters, kindly put them forward in the chat. So later on, when all the presenters present their PowerPoint, we will have time to discuss them. So now we'll move on and we welcome Diane. We welcome Diane Mitzi to do her presentation.
Hello everyone, I'm Diane, and I am a primary teacher in a state school. I work at Birkirkara Primary and I teach year 3. So, there were several learning opportunities throughout the lesson study process, but I will be focusing on the ones which I feel were most prominent. I feel that first and foremost, we had a community of sharing. We had a conversation going on MS Teams, and I even noticed that we kept on sharing ideas, strategies, and resources even after the post-lesson discussion was over. So the conversation kept on flowing even after our lesson study was over. During the meetings, we talked a lot about challenges that we face in the classrooms. Some were common for both classes because in our team, we were myself and another year 3 teacher who is my colleague, as well as our assistant head and the med support teacher. So sharing our challenges gave a sense of ownership, and in fact, we chose to use the CPA approach as our QSI. So it was the focus point, the challenge of our lesson study, the challenge that we decided to focus on. Using CPA was documented in our last SDP, and I really feel that lesson study was a very effective way of implementing it, as we were really supporting each other as a team. We chose to teach the concepts of clockwise and anti-clockwise through CPA. And I felt that throughout the planning, we were really focused on the lesson objectives. And we kept on referring through them throughout. So one meeting after another, while we were planning the lesson, we really maintained the focus of the lesson objectives. It was quite a lengthy process, and normally, perhaps we do not spend enough time concentrating on the learning objectives of the lesson with respect to the activities that we deliver for the outcome to be achieved. The input by the knowledgeable other was invaluable. In our case, the math support teacher was involved, and in all the stages of the lesson study, she gave practical suggestions, and she kept on trying to improve the lesson throughout. Obviously, there were challenges. A common challenge to most of us is time. Being in the primary, as was already mentioned, we have the challenge of finding a common slot for everybody to meet and even to deliver the lesson. In fact, the lesson was delivered during break time. We had to shift the time of our break, of the students' break, most importantly, so that we could all be available to deliver the lesson. Furthermore, being that there was Christmas time and a lot of whole school activities going on, and I feel that the timeline of the lesson study was a bit disrupted. In fact, most of the planning was ready by the beginning of the lesson of December, and the lesson was delivered in January after the holidays. So we all had to refresh our memory when it came to the planning and the lesson delivery. Another challenge was leading a team which was not familiar with the characteristics and process of lesson study, while at the same time I was learning about lesson study myself. Also, since in primary we spend the day with our students, and this was our classroom that we were planning our lesson for, I am very much aware of the students' strengths and needs. I felt that the lesson was challenging for the students, and there is a fine line between being challenging, that you stretch the students' abilities, and the students giving up. So there was a particular part of the lesson, which was the triage phase, where the students were giving up. The observers picked on this, and they assisted the children by prompting so that they could manage to complete the task. They broke it down for them so that they could complete it. As a concluding reflection, first of all, I believe that the learning opportunities outweigh the challenges. If I had to lead another lesson study, ideally, I would choose one member who is familiar with the process of lesson study. I think that this could facilitate the process a lot. Furthermore, I would organize the meetings in such a way that there is a better flow in the timeline, perhaps spacing out the meetings so that there isn't a big gap between the planning stage and the delivery of the lesson. Also, I wouldn't choose the class that I am teaching. I believe that this would give the members the opportunity to contribute more. I would have a more unbiased role. And as Dr. Kalleya mentioned earlier on, it would be sort of less about me. I wouldn't contribute so much to the discussion during the meetings. It would be more focused on leading the actual lesson study. I would like to thank Dr. Kalleya and Ms. Formosa for their continuous support and for the opportunity to share our experience in this seminar. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Diane. Very well done for your presentation as well. And we now invite our third presenter for this theme, Simona Lul.
Hi, yes. Let me just share my screen. Thank you. 1 second. All right, are you seeing it? Well, now. Yeah, slideshow. Oh, excuse me, just a second. Begin. No. Are you seeing it now? As a slide. All right. No. Hi. Yes. Are you seeing it properly, or sorry about this, but
it was better. So can you share?
it was better before, right? I
Iva,
thought so. Sorry about that.
problem.
Yes.
Yes.
Ekahiar.
It's good. It's good enough.
All right. Sorry, there's something
Okay, no problem.
wrong. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me some time to present my own findings. This was my first opportunity to lead a lesson study. As Dr. James Kaleya said earlier, I had Miss Tanya, who is the assistant head of our junior sector where I work, and she was supporting me, but I was leading the lesson study. So it was a very enriching opportunity. And as my colleagues said before me in their presentations, yes, the learning opportunities very much outweigh the challenges. So my lesson study was a maths lesson about number patterns, and I chose to deliver the lesson with my own children in class. Being that I moved up a teaching grade, there were some discrepancies that I saw in my own lessons. And when I was building up my team, I noticed that other grade teachers shared the same concern. So I wanted to have the opportunity to deliver the lesson with my own children in class. Once the team was set up, my team was set up between my teaching team, so there was an LSC, there was my class assistant, there was Ms. Tanya, who was supporting our lesson study as well. And I also included a teacher who shared the same concerns from the number pattern concept of maths. So planning the lesson study, finding our focus and planning was very efficient. It was very easy flowing. Everyone was very excited to contribute. And there were many learning opportunities, which I will mention now. I do believe that this lesson study allowed for collaborative practice where we can share ideas. We come together with our different perspectives and at the same time grow professionally, because we can learn from one another, and it's something I feel is very close to heart. Our school allows us the opportunity to have planning sessions as a grade team every week. And I feel that sharing of practice is not done as effectively. So this lesson study really helped for us to come together, reflect on our practice, and improve our teaching strategies. Other learning opportunities I feel helped me while I was leading this lesson study is the opportunity to have action research and analyze the pedagogies that we are currently implementing in our school, which is the emergent teaching pedagogy, and also exploring other pedagogies. Now, as I said earlier, one of in relation to our lesson study team members. The LSC who works with me is also Italian. So she had a lot of insights, very valuable insight to share with regards to her way of learning and the Italian educational system. Over and above, she's also an LSC, so she gave a lot of further input on how we could scaffold or challenge certain students. Another opportunity that I noticed in the lesson study was having the opportunity to give feedback and to give critique. Now with this, I will move into what I noticed was a challenge as well, because while the feedback was very important, with different constraints and challenges that I will be mentioning soon, there were certain clashes that I didn't preempt, since I was very comfortable leading and working with my team. And there was an occasion where, in particular, where because of a clash previously, the critique given, which was constructive criticism and did help when it came to planning the lesson and delivering, the way the critique was given was harsh. So it was quite a learning experience, where I had to take a step back, focus on what was being said, and keeping in mind that I would like to focus on student attainment and have their achievement being as high as possible for the lesson. So it was a very, very enriching experience, an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. Moving into the challenges I faced while leading the lesson study, was one of the challenges faced was which teaching pedagogy is the best fit, and the implementation variability. Being that everyone has their own perspective, I felt that during the meetings, there was a lot of time wasted between everyone wants to give their input. It's very valuable, but then we had to focus on the lesson plan we had to design and deliver. So there was that challenge. It was lovely to see that everyone was very into the lesson study, being that we were all new to the idea, with the exception that Miss Tanya, who was supporting us, has had a previous experience of lesson study. So her support was in keeping our focus and moving forward, identifying important pedagogies and sticking to them, and we keep moving forward. As my colleagues mentioned in their presentations, yes, time was of the essence. There was the Christmas period. Above all that, there were parent meetings that teachers had to go to. My LSC and class assistants sometimes were not able to be present because they had to go to their specialist to either a PE lesson or a music lesson, depending on the children they are currently observing and assisting. And also, having Ms. Tanya also being an assistant head of our school, she too had her own commitments with the management team. So finding time to meet, even though the meetings dates were set and there were reminders being sent from my end, our meetings were not in 100% attendance at all. there was only the first time where we met together, all under one roof. So as a leader, something that I learned along the way was to find that extra time during the school day, because meeting after school was not an option, unfortunately. Finding time during the day to fill in the rest of the team, whether it's the LSC member, whether it's the teacher next door. We try and find a free slot during a coffee break or something. And sending emails with the minutes of the meeting and also a WhatsApp chat really helped. I mentioned time constraints. Other challenges faced, as mentioned earlier, was the team members' input. Apart from what I mentioned, being that certain critique was harsh, but beneficial for the lesson plan itself, I noticed that during the meetings, members' involvement varied from one meeting to another. For example, in the first meeting where we're all under one roof, especially with the LSE having an Italian background, she was very outspoken. She had a lot of valuable knowledge to share, but she tended to take over that particular meeting, whereas other characters preferred to share information with me during a coffee break, for example. And when the LSE was not present in the meeting, I felt that certain members were more comfortable to voice their opinion. Maybe the class climate was, the meeting climate was calmer, and they felt more at ease to join in and give their input. Unfortunately, when we reached out to having knowledgeable others, they did not answer us in time, so I couldn't have them or ask my team members whether they would like knowledgeable others to attend these meetings. So what I did instead was ask the members whether they would be okay with the knowledgeable others being present during the delivery of the lesson and the post-lesson discussion. That was valuable in another way, that once the lesson was delivered, we had another perspective come into place with what worked out during the lesson and what could have been improved for the second cycle, should the lesson plan be re-implemented, which would be interesting. If I would like to have the time, once we come to multiplication, I would like to redo the lesson. So that's those are the challenges I faced. As a prospective leader, as mentioned earlier, the positives very much outweigh the negatives when leading a lesson study, because even though I was leading the lesson study, I felt that through having everyone sitting down on a chair that is the same level as one another, you know, everyone felt empowered and inspired to give their own contribution. So collaboration was at its peak during this lesson study, which obviously allowed for reflective practice, and even post-lesson discussion, I had the opportunity to share it with the rest of my grade colleagues, the grade 4 teaching team, and we kept on reflecting on how it could have been improved further. Being a prospective leader, I feel that observing and leading a lesson study will keep on the learning progress as a professional who firmly believes that there's always room for more growth. and sharing a vision where lesson study allows for data analysis and diving deep into certain pedagogies. This will allow for possibly new teaching strategies implemented within the school community. So to close off, I would like to finish with that, yes, there were challenges faced, and that's part where the critique was given for me was more of a challenge than and the learning opportunity to grow than the time constraint, because having an agenda helped to sort of find loopholes between the time constraints. But it was a very enriching experience. And yes, I would like to focus on the image I shared with you, where I would not like to be afraid to dream big, set goals, and then take action upon certain goals and vision. That's all from my end. I would like to thank you very much for your time, and thank Dr. James Calais and Ms. Laura Formosa for their continuous support. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you also, Diane and Jessica, for your presentations. We have a couple of questions in the chat, which we could take. I think we have one from Neni. She's asking 3 questions. Maybe we could answer one of these questions. She has asked, what would you do if one of the roles in the lesson study teams doesn't work? Okay. Is that okay to change the team member in the middle of the study? Or how do you deal with that situation? Okay, so the question is about what would you do if one of the roles is not working well? Okay, then there's a question from Randolph, and he's asking, what other roles and contributions can the school leadership team adopt to encourage the use of lesson study among teaching staff and to facilitate the process? I'm not sure whether you could answer one of these questions there in the chat, one by Randolph and the previous one by Neni. In the meantime, what I've seen from these 3 presentations, at least, was that Jessica really focused on making this not an individual kind of activity, but shifting it to becoming a group activity, you know, winning people over while you're leading a lesson study because you're doing a course, okay? Because we need to remind ourselves that you are leading a lesson study, not because the teachers want to do a lesson study, but you're actually finding a team, okay? Because you need to do a lesson study because you're doing a course in leading lesson study. So it makes it even more difficult. So that's why we appreciate your efforts, because it's difficult, you know, when teachers want to do it, let alone if you're trying to, you know, get teacher buy-in and doing it. So that was really a nice thing. Diane was focusing on a knowledgeable ladder in lesson study. I think, again, how to involve the knowledgeable ladder and how to make sense of what the knowledgeable ladder is contributing to the lesson study. And Simone then focused a point on, you know, getting harsh feedback. And that's something we really need to be aware of. So again, so when we're learning to do a lesson study, we need to all learn about all these different roles, okay? Because it's most likely that we're new to this process and we need to learn how we're doing it and how we're doing it in order to learn as a community, okay? So any interventions from maybe Simone? Yes, Simone?
Yes, if I could answer one of Neni's questions on changing a team member, given that I did have that harsh critique given, I don't believe, I think if I chose to change the team member, I would have been taking an easy way out, if I'm being honest. I think sticking to the team I chose, because I do believe that everyone had very valuable input to give. I think that there are times where we can hear things we love and times where we need to be to get such conversations. And with such a large school, I teach in an independent school where there's a lot of staff members, and not necessarily everyone gets along with everyone, but being in a hopefully prospective leader position, I feel that you do need to find a compromise and work with everyone, regardless of the feedback. So as in my opinion, to grow professionally, I feel that changing the member would not have resulted in such a good lesson delivery and outcome, honestly.
Thanks
That's
for
all.
that, Timon. Yes, I think embracing the diversity and the different people is really what we need or should be doing. Yes, thank you. Maybe another intervention from maybe Jessica or
To adapt what Simone said in order to question Nani, that's why it's very important. First of all, it's voluntary basis, so they are voluntary, no one is forced to participate. And apart from that, in my lesson study, I had 7 members. So if someone really wants to opt out, you still have other members to continue your lesson study.